The American Family Association has done research. They've asked parents how many positive versus negative statements to their children they've made, and they find the average parent said they made 10 negative to every 1 positive statement. Teachers in junior high level have been asked on other occasions, how many positive statements does it take to overcome a negative statement if in fact you can overcome them? And they said they found that it took at least 4 positive to overcome 1 negative. Think of the ratio. 10 negative made to 1 positive, but it takes 4 positive to overcome 1 negative. Think of the implications. Some of you are living with that. Some of you have fostered homes. You fostered business relationships where people were never good enough because of your own perfectionism. And instead of saying, you can do it, I see something in you, I believe in you, instead you've conveyed, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, or you've heard that yourself, and it's been devastating. It's time to change, folks. If you want to create the right key, you've got to encourage. You've got to compliment. Secondly, you need to express confidence. Boy, what happens when people fail you? How do you respond? I know how I want to respond. I want to get them. I've studied leaders throughout history for years. My doctoral work was in the area of leadership development. I've studied hundreds of leaders around the world. I've read about every major leader in history I can. I'm fascinated by leaders. Frankly, I think the greatest leader of all times was the person of Christ. I am fascinated by his life. He did more things right than anyone I've ever seen in all of history. But one of the stories about him that fascinates me is when he came back to visit with his disciples, about 150, in an upper room after his death and then his resurrection, and then he's going to ascend into heaven. And here he is back. Now I want you to imagine that you're in his shoes. Think about this scenario. Basically, when he went to the cross, how did his followers respond in the main? I'll think about it from your days of studying this stuff. Pardon? Yeah, I mean, they basically turned on him, right? I mean, they were not exactly excited about his dying in the first place. They thought he was going to usher in a big power thing, a big kingdom. And one of them turned him in, and, we know the number doubted and so on. Now think about how people might treat you in your business scenario, or how your family might treat you. If you're in leadership, and most of you are, you know what it's like. It's very lonely at the top. I had a call today from a former associate of mine. He was a faculty member when I was a president of a graduate school. And he was one of these young buck faculty members. And he called me today, many years later, having gotten into leadership positions similar to mine in a number of different institutions and succeeding greatly. And you know what he called me to say? He said, Ron, I just wanted to call you to say I'm sorry. He said, I'm sorry because I realized I've realized many times over the last number of years how difficult your job was. I've learned to empathize with what you went through, and I really gave you a lot of trouble as a young faculty member. I was intense, I was passionate, I wasn't very understanding, I was intolerant. I don't remember him, by the way, as that at all. I remember him as a kind-hearted, intense, passionate guy, but not any of the other things. And I have great affection for him, but it was a class act for him to call. And you all know, if you've been in leadership, as most of you have, that it can be very lonely at the top, and people can let you down routinely, and they can turn on you. How do you respond when they do that? Well, here Jesus is. He comes back to the 150. Imagine you're Jesus. I'm going to pretend like I am, and I'm going to respond the way I would tend to respond. I would have wanted to respond like this, normally. Yes, it's Jesus. I'm here for one reason, just one. It's to tell you this. You're all out. You're out of the game, you're off the team, you're out of the program, you're out. Now I just want you to know I poured my life into you people. I could have picked anybody for the executive positions I had, but I chose you. I passed over a lot of talent, and I chose Peter, James, John, you fishermen. You weren't good fishermen, and I chose you. Matthew, you were a crummy tax collector. Nobody likes a tax collector, and I chose you. Judas, he was the one I thought I could really trust, and what did he do? He turned me in. And then I spent... I had only 3 years to really expend here. And instead of doing all the other marketing sales things I could have done, instead I poured my life into you. I built a team, I thought. And then I took you with me and I showed you what I really could do, who I really was. And I fed the 5,000, I healed the sick, and I brought the dead to life. I did everything I could do. I don't know how much better I could have been as a leader. I told you I would die. I told you I'd come back, and you turned on me. Thomas, once and for all, why don't you come up and feel my hands? Thomas, you know what you are? You're negative. I mean, I should have known from day one. You're an administrative type. The glass is always half empty.